Should Lee Saunders dance? Because, you know, he and I call each other every time we both do AFL-CIO conventions, and he normally says, okay, I warmed them up for you. Now I want to see what you can do. But that's because Lee and I, why I start with Lee? Lee is from Ohio. I'm from New York. Lee and I spent a lot of time together in New York when he was the trustee for DC 37, and we worked together. And we didn't just say, let's work together. We worked together. We made sure we had each other's back. And that is what I have seen in the Ohio AFL-CIO each and every time I am here, and so I am glad to be here to say thank you for having each other's back. Now, I have a big speech, and my colleagues in the AFT know, I think it's really because I can't see anymore. So I keep saying I'm not going to read my speech because I think it's actually I can't see. But seriously, it's because I got up this morning and we had dinner last night, Melissa Cropper and Kevin Dalton and David Kolke and I, and we spent a lot of time really thinking about what's going on in Ohio. And I actually woke up this morning, and these three unionists who I know incredibly well, and I saw Julie Sellers out in the audience too, and we're going to go to a school later on. And I saw beforehand, I was trying to dance with Lori. She can dance better than I can, but Lori Chovanik, who's our new leader of O&A, together with Bob Cousins. Where's Bob? There he is. This is who AFT is in Ohio now. Nurses and educators together, trying to make a great life for people who need it every day, for the kids that we serve, and for the patients who, without those nurses, particularly in places like Youngstown, what would happen? And I just need to do a shout out to say, I am so proud of these folks, because every single day they get up and do two things. They fight for workers all throughout America, and they do everything they can to make the work that they do for the people we serve the best it can be. So thank you very much, my folks. And I start that way, and you know, I just want to do a shout out to Tim as well, because you see the stuff that we do. And I saw when we fought on SB 5, and the trades and the private sector came in and said, wait a second, you can't do this to the public sector, Kasich. You can't actually take away people's voice, because when you take away people's voice, you take away democracy. It's more than collective bargaining. It's about the firefighters' right to say, no, we need to make sure we have safe equipment so we can actually fight fires. It's about the school teachers' right to say for special needs kids, you can't cut this budget, because if you cut this budget, this little child that we have in our embrace will not get the support she needs to make her way in life. It's about making sure for the nurses that they can stand up and they can say, wait a second, I cannot lift a patient that is 300 pounds by myself, nor should anybody try to make that happen, because that's going to hurt the patient as well as me. That's what having voice is. Now, we don't normally talk about it this way. And this is the one thing I want to spend my time talking about. What made us successful in SB 5? And what do we need to do going forward? Whether it's Harris v. Quinn, whether it's right to work, we ourselves have started talking in 140 characters like Twitter. Do any of our members really know what right to work means? The right wing is pretty smart. What does right to work sound like? Sorry, I'm a history teacher, not an English teacher. Right to work. You get to go to work. They don't actually know that every state that has right to work means right to work for less. It means a chokehold on unions. It means a chokehold on voice and democracy. Who knows that? Who knows that? Right? They know it in Michigan now. So like Lee said to you yesterday, we need to have a movement. We had a moment, and David reminded me that after the 2010 election, I often said this. We need to take a moment, like what happened in Wisconsin after the election with all those protesters. What happened here, because what you did in the fight on SB 5 is you kept the labor movement alive through that moment. You did, my friends. You did. And when I say that we couldn't do it alone in terms of the public sector, the privates were with us every step of the way, that gave us the validation. But this is what you did. And this is what I'm asking you to do, because this is what takes a moment and makes it into a movement. The people in America are with us. It doesn't always feel that way. But if you do poll after poll after poll, and this is why we keep talking about reclaiming the promise of America, what do people want? They want kids to be able to go to safe, welcoming, neighborhood public schools. They want their kids, our kids, to not only be told that college is important, but actually have a path to go to college without becoming broke as part of it. Imagine you're told it's very, very important, and it is. But to go broke? There was an article in the New York Times a couple of days ago, people who are still in their 60s and 70s, still paying college loans. How is that the promise of America? We all know in this room, because collective bargaining is etched in our heart and our blood. And we know in this room that the only way you can be treated fairly at work is to frankly have a collective bargaining contract with a strong union, right? But how do we make sure that that's something that everyone knows and everybody aspires to? And it doesn't take, like what happened with CWA, 18 years for the American attendants to get a union, which they just voted for yesterday. What else does it mean? In terms of health care, we know it shouldn't mean that you are one disease away from bankruptcy. Whether it's cancer, or whether it's diabetes, or whether it's a kid that has a childhood disease. And that's why having health care becomes so important on a long-term basis, regardless of what age we're at. And that it shouldn't be an exchange of whether you have a cost of living wage increase from your boss that you have fought so hard to get, or trying to maintain premiums that don't take it out of our hides. That's why we fight for quality affordable health care, good jobs, living wages. And the one that I focus on probably more than anything else is retirement security. That's what the promise of America means. How dare this country, the wealthiest country in the world, basically consign its elderly to a life of poverty? Because all of a sudden, businesses have to put on their books what retirement costs are over the course of everybody's lifetime and then 10 times over. You know what that was when the Bush administration did that. But remember, just like with right to work, they use these nice fangled terms like, oh, we just want to make sure that everybody understands what the real costs are, right? Like when you get married, do you actually say to your wife or husband or your partner, oh, by the way, we are going to spend, gazillions of dollars over the course of our lifetime, so are you sure you really want to do this marriage bit? Does anybody really actually do that? And if somebody just said I should have. Touché. So, look, that's our agenda. That's always been our agenda. The words may look different, but that's always been our agenda. And that's the agenda of the American people. That is what the American dream is. That's what the American promise is. That's what shared prosperity is. I don't know if anybody's been watching the PBS special about Theodore Roosevelt and FDR and, Eleanor Roosevelt. But you think about what they all tried to do. It's totally similar, scarily similar to what we're trying to do. So, how do we take the moment which you did with SB 5 and where the Koch brothers, isn't it great that we have the Koch sisters now that are fighting the Koch brothers? I met them yesterday in Washington. They are really awesome. But how do we take the sentiment that the American people have and the muscle that we have, and it's the same values and it's the same agenda, and our job is frankly to make sure that the rest of our communities know we are in it together and we stand together in these fights for great schools and living wages where people have a voice at work and have real retirement security. That, my friends, is how we take a moment and go to a movement, and you did it in SB 5. So the question becomes, how do we do it going forward? And what David said about how we're trying to do it in terms of community building, look what's happening in Cincinnati. In Cincinnati, Julie, where are you? I just want you to stand up for a second. There she is. In Cincinnati, we had, this is not, what you would call a warm and fuzzy place for unions. We've had great leadership who understood this, Julie being an exceptional leader. But what we understood was the right wing was trying to starve schools by creating charters and by basically saying to parents, this is the only place you're going to get a decent education. Totally wrong, just like with right to work. But that's what they were trying to do. And what Julie and others understood was, yes, we have to fight back. And we have to say all the reasons why the charters in Ohio are, frankly, the worst charters in the United States of America. They don't actually perform very well. There's scandal upon scandal. Even some charter advocates are now saying they should get closed. Sorry, we shouldn't live in an evidence-free zone. But all of that stuff is out there now. But even when you fight back, what you get to is the same place as you were in. So what Julie and others understood was, what is the fight forward? How do you move forward? And so what they did was they said, we got to actually do more than instruction. We have to create welcoming, safe, collaborative neighborhood schools. And given all the poverty, we're at the foothills of Appalachia, let's figure out how we can actually create conditions that kids need to mitigate poverty and their parents need to mitigate poverty. Like maybe having health care in schools, maybe making sure that we feed kids so that they're not hungry, so that they're actually not sleeping through class. Maybe we try to do all that. And who do we try to find partners to do that with? And over the course of the last 10 years, that's what Cincinnati has done. And half the schools in Cincinnati are now community learning centers or schools that have wraparound services or things like that. And parents started bringing their kids back to public schools because parents want public schools. They want safe, neighborhood, collaborative public schools that help kids, that serve kids, that embrace kids. And what a shock. All of a sudden, the achievement gap goes down in Cincinnati. All of a sudden, the graduation rate goes up. The levies start getting passed. Last year, when the right wing tried to take away pensions, that was defeated on the ballot. And people look at the Cincinnati schools from all over the country and say, these are great schools, how did you do it? Working with community, solving the problems, parents coming back. Brothers and sisters, we can do that with every issue for our members and for the greater community. We're doing that in pensions. The trades and our union and ASME are working and saying, let's see if we can use a piece of our pensions to actually invest in America for building with the trades to make good union jobs. And we worked with the Clinton Global Initiative, and we said, okay, we're going to find money to do this. And people are like, oh, yeah, right, you're going to find money to do this. And we made a commitment that we would find $10 billion to do this in 5 years. And last year, with Lee and Rich Trumpka and myself and Sean McGarvey, we stood at a podium with President Clinton, and in 3 years, we found over $10 billion. Every time we spend $1 billion, it's 30 or 40 or 50,000 jobs, good union jobs, creating infrastructure in communities. That's what I mean, brothers and sisters, when I say we each have each other's back. When we try to figure out how we help each other, how we help move this agenda, motivate and animate this agenda, an agenda to create and recreate a middle class. That's what Ohio was, and that's what Ohio needs to be again. So, there's one problem. And that one problem is, and you know it in this room as well as I do, I'm not going to bullshit people in this room. Try not to bullshit people ever. But you'd read through it in a hot New York second. And that is, unlike in Michigan or Wisconsin right now, where the race is really close for governor, it's not so close here yet. Yet. It's not over until it's over. You know that and I know that. We have the biggest job ahead of us that we've ever had to do in Ohio. And we've had a lot of hard jobs in Ohio. And that job is we gotta motivate our folks to go out and vote. We don't have a choice about this. Because if we don't motivate our folks to vote, look what has happened in the last 4 years in the Ohio legislature. We are one vote away from cracking the supermajority that they have. One vote away. If we turn one of the districts, we have to turn. If we keep the 3 districts, we have to keep. I got that right? We are one vote away. You can't tell me in the great state of Ohio, with all the members that we have and with the connections we have with the community, we can't make that happen. Connie Pillage. You heard what I just said about pensions. If we had Connie Pillage as treasurer, don't you think we could do that same kind of thing in Ohio? Don't you think we could show the world that with our pension systems and with our tradespeople, we could actually make and grow Ohio and grow the jobs in Ohio? And we grow the jobs, we grow the schools. We grow the jobs, good jobs, not Walmart jobs. We create the Ohio that I remember when I was a kid and I came to Warren to work. I was not 5 years old, I was 17 years old. This is a state where we can turn this around. Even with everything that Kasich has done, he's never reached 50. You got good people running. We know how to motivate. We know how to move community. You proved that in SB 5. We need to leave this convention saying to ourselves, what motivates our members to vote? And start doing that. And once we do that, and talk about that in the kind of plain English that I've tried to use in this speech, where we share values, where we say we can be, as the labor movement, the muscle, the highway, the avenue to fight for good jobs, to fight for retirement security, for fight for great schools. People will listen because that's what they want to. So I'm asking you, because this is everything on the line now in terms of Ohio. We don't want to have to fight back the way in which we've had to do in the last 4 years. We want to fight forward, to move forward for a new America that believes in mitigating income inequality, that believes in the middle class. So I'm asking you, are you ready and are you willing? Will you take that moment and make it into a movement? Will we knock on as many doors as we can knock on? Will we make as many phone calls as we can make? Will we turn this around voter by voter, step by step? And with Ohio goes the United States of America. Thank you very much.